Okay, we're going to get started in 3-4 minutes or so. Just wanted to check that everyone can hear me. Hello, everyone. I see lots of people coming in here. It's great. Awesome. Hello, you can hear me, Deborah. Great. And I love how everybody's writing to panelists and attendees so we can all see you're here tonight. That's great. Hello, hello. So just, it's your first time, Anita, welcome, welcome. I think there's a few new people here tonight. Not that I can remember everybody's names, but I see a few new names. Yeah, it sure has been nice and sunny today. Just a note, if you want everybody to see your chat, just to send it to the panelists and attendees. Either way is totally fine. And oh, Shelley, I had to make you a co-host, not just a panelist. Oh my goodness. Sorry, that's why you probably couldn't put your video on. There we are.
Okay, all good now?
Yes, sorry, you were waiting in the wings there.
Oh, that's okay. No, I thought maybe you were gonna bring me on when the time is right. So.
Right.
All good.
Great. And I'm just I'll stop my screen share in a second, and I'll just bring Mark Lawrence on here also as a co-host so that we could see him. There we go. And there we go. Okay. Great. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So we're almost at 6 o'clock. And just so there's a couple people who are actually new to the webinars and maybe new to Zoom. So just so you know, you can navigate just move your little cursor around to a part that says chat, and there should be a bubble. And so you can feel free to just click on that, and then it'll open up a chat box where you can comment and say hello, and just kind of ask questions as we go along. And the other thing you can do is move to a part that says view, and if you click on that, you should get a couple of options to have to see all of us at the same time, or just the person that's speaking. And that's really handy too. If we go into sharing some slides, you can still, I always like to see someone when they're speaking, but that's another option for you. So anyway, let's get started. So yeah, welcome everybody to our next Monday night webinar. And I'm just loving doing these series because I get to talk with so many amazing people that know so many things that are new to me. So I'll just pass it to Dr. Lawrence from the clinic just to welcome our guest tonight.
Hi, can you hear me? Perfect.
I can, yes.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, I'd just like to, first of all, welcome Shelley. We're very privileged to have Shelley, who's a physical therapist and a yoga teacher. And yeah, Shelley's going to be talking about something very important to us in terms of our pain journey, in terms of self-care and self-compassion, which I think is really important. A couple of housekeeping rules just for some of the participants who this might be one of the first sessions that they've done, is that, if people do want to share anything of a personal nature, that's great. And just that we respect one another similar to as if this was taking place in person in our clinic. And that way it creates a safe space so we can share things and just respect one another's confidentiality, because this is part of the Bill Nelems Pain and Research Center's program, and there is an implied sort of confidentiality amongst the group. I think that's just important for everybody to just recognize that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Shirley, and we look forward to tonight's interesting presentation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks. Thanks for that. Right. So I just want to now turn to our guest. So Shelley's joining us here from, I think you're from, are you still in Sylvan Lake?
I am, yes.
You are.
I am,
Yes,
yep.
yes.
Right in between Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta.
Okay. So from Alberta, so you're an hour ahead of us, right? Yes. Yeah. So as Mark said, Shelley's a physiotherapist and a yoga teacher, or a yoga therapist, I should say, because there is a difference. And also an author and a speaker. And I've run across Shelley a couple of times. I've run across your name in a number of ways. If you're Shelley has a number of really good YouTube videos available as well, and a ton of articles that are like really interesting. And most recently co-edited Yoga and Science in Pain Care with Neil Pearson, who you guys met a couple of weeks back, and Marlisa Sullivan. So it's a really, I feel like it's a groundbreaking book, that one, for a lot of people. So tonight, we're talking about self-care and self-compassion in pain care. And it almost seems to me like it's something we kind of talk around, and it's kind of implied, and we, look after yourself, type of thing when you're struggling, but it's not something that we always just talk about fully. Like what does this mean? What does self-care actually mean? And how do we cultivate that, like, as actually a skill in as part of our journey? So I'll turn it to you, Shelley, if you want to tell us, how this became, of all the things that you do, which are a lot, how this became stood out as something to look at further, something that was important.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And thanks, Dr. Lawrence, for the intro as well. And hi again, Madeline. Thanks. I really, and hi, everybody. Hello. I wish, it's hard because I can't see you. So sometimes we forget. So I have to remember that you're all there, right? And there, I don't see you, but I see you in my heart. So how did I get into this? I think it can be quite a long story because there's no one path or one reason. I guess the shortest thing I can say is that this was something that's always been important to me, even before I've heard the terms, self-care, or even the term or the concept of self-compassion. So the work around self-care and self-compassion, that gave language, to some things that were already important to me. So it's a combination of just my own personal journey, my personal life, particularly the self-compassion work. And we'll go through this today. And, some of you may be familiar with already the concept, and whether you are or not, I think there'll be something of value here today. So it's just this idea of really giving, like I said, language to something that is just always been really important to me. And that what I discovered is that I actually didn't really have a lot of self-compassion once I started learning more about what it is, and I still work on it. It's a process. And then once I started learning more about it and practicing it more, and what is it and what does it mean, and I'll go through also self-care, that they both work together. But once I started learning more, then I started realizing, wow, like this is I need this, and how it's helped me in my life. So that's kind of the first. And then in parallel to that, it also, kind of I'm trying to think what sort of came first, and I don't think I can, you know, describe, but along this path, there was also, as I was working with people in pain, so I got my physiotherapy degree in 1998, and I was a yoga teacher in the early 90s before physio, and then I became a yoga therapist later on. And so just over time, working with people in pain and listening to all the stories and just what I was learning alongside about the research around self-compassion and self-care and what all that is and etc., I started kind of connecting the dots and saying, you know what, it seems that the people I'm working with also struggle with this idea of self-care and self-compassion. And then with the book, you know, we probably started talking about that around 2015 or 16. And I just, with Marlisa and Neil, I just said, you know, I want to do a chapter on this topic. And then and then it budded from there, because once you write a chapter, you really got to do the work, because this was yoga and science and pain care. So then I took 2 years and dug in, and then I really learned more about self-care and particularly self-compassion within the context of pain care. So that was a little long, but I think that's important just for everybody to kind of see, or maybe it's not important, but it might, hopefully it's kind of interesting to see my path.
Right. Well, there's so many questions I have about that, but just how it stood out as something that was important, and not only for yourself, but I'm wondering a couple of things. Is it more difficult to, it just seems like a difficult thing for us to do as humans in general, to have compassion for ourselves. And so I'm wondering, especially when it comes to, you know, when you live with persistent pain, is it more difficult to, and why, I guess 2 parts to that. And what is the science showing us? I guess that's a whole other thing. What is the science? Because it's becoming so much more talked about now, self-compassion. What is the science showing about pain when you live with persistent pain?
Yeah, so, you know, we do have some research that seems to suggest that, you know, people that, you know, have persistent pain, although it's not, you know, we're still generalizing, but there is some research that shows, self-compassion might be lower, and we don't know why. And it's not, you know, it's not causal per se. It's just, oh, there's this interesting association. My own theory, and others write about this too, I mean, it makes sense in some ways, because look at a couple things. One, look at a lot of the different losses that we might have in life, right? When pain persists, the changes, maybe jobs, relationships, just even your own sense of self and your own sense of you, that might really be a certain type of a loss. And then when we look at, why we may be hard on ourselves for that, I think some of it's cultural. So that hasn't really been studied. Like, are all cultures hard on themselves? Like, we don't really have that answer. But I think one thing that I see is it's just sort of the messages that our culture does give and the stigma associated. So in all the messages around pain and some of our outdated views of pain. So if our views are outdated about pain and we don't have a deeper understanding of it, then, you know, people, and not just healthcare providers, but, you know, all of us, you know, just the culture in general, we may have this idea that, well, it must be my fault in some way, even though I'm trying, I'm doing everything I can, I'm doing everything that the healthcare providers are telling me, and you know, I'm doing all these things, and so it must be me. So that, you know, that might be, you know, part of it. So a little bit of cultural, and then just a little bit of like how hard this journey is. So I guess I don't really have a clear answer as to why, but those are some insights. And then as far as the research, so I think this might be a good opportunity.
You take it away.
To just get to. So I need some permission. Let's see. all
Can you share from the bottom there?
I'm trying. It's giving me, I'll try again here. It's saying who can share.
You should be able to.
Okay,
Yeah.
now it's working. So we're all good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You know, Shelley, just what you said, I think is just so important. Just, you know, what you just said for people to hear, that if you don't know what's happening in your body and why pain keeps persisting, it almost seems like we then, you know, some people might then turn it on themselves, like there must be something I'm doing or I'm not doing, or I've done something wrong. Like, why is this happening? To the whole why thing can make it very hard to be like compassionate with ourselves if we don't understand, which from what I'm understanding, maybe in the last decade or so, we know more about, you know, the science of why pain persists. But it must be very difficult if you don't know that not knowing.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, really well said there. So I think what I'll do, since we're starting to talk about self, no, this is all good. Maybe I'll jump to, well, no, you know what? I'm going to start off. I was going to jump to self-compassion, but let me just take a moment here.
Yeah.
And let's describe self-care, because self-compassion is part of self-care. So before I get into talking about, you know, self-compassion and what the science is saying about some of the benefits, I think it's good to first define self-compassion and what is it, right? And then even before that, just the bigger umbrella of why we're here talking about self-care. We might even say this is like pain. We've heard the term pain self-management, or, you know, those kinds of things. So, you know, I want everybody here just for a moment, and you don't have to type anything into the chat, and, you know, unless you want to, but this is just for you. And I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you have a sheet of paper or something, I like to jot notes down. Maybe you're not a note taker, but, or you can just keep it in your mind, you know, if you want, but just take a moment and think about what self-care means to you. So again, you don't have to necessarily share it or anything, but let's just take a moment and think of what it means to you. I'll give you about 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, like Shelley said, if anybody feels like popping anything in the chat, feel free to go ahead.
And so for me, so first of all, self-care, it's not like there's this agreed upon, this is the definition. So this is the right definition, and yours, no, it's not quite right. This, no. You know, whatever self-care means to you, I mean, that's what it is. Okay, so, but what I'm here to want to, I guess, guide you all and just provide some deeper insight, and let's have a more nuanced kind of discussion. I guess it's not really a discussion per se, but between you and I, Madeline, like what's a little more nuanced here, and by the end of this, maybe it can help you reframe self-care a bit in a way that is helpful for you and more hopeful and not so daunting. So I have one of the blogs, and I have all these resources at the end for everybody. And you're right, I do like writing about this, because this self-care, it's kind of a trendy term, you know. I think the last several years, like, you know, we all go through, the whole culture goes through different phases, and psychology goes through different phases. There was like the self-confidence phase in the 80s or whatever, you know what I mean? It changes. So we're kind of in a self-care trend, which that's great. And we know the value and in that, and it makes sense. However, just like anything, sometimes I think terms and concepts get kind of watered down, or they take on a life and an entity of its own. And I find with self-care, it's sort of taken on this thing, like it's an added thing that you have to do. It's an added thing on your list of things to do. And then for us, like for people in pain, and for all of you, you know, listening here, maybe this rings true for you, maybe not, that's fine. But I know a lot of people that I work with will say this, it sounds good and they get it. And guess what? It becomes another thing that you failed at, or another thing that you're not doing good enough at. And we're well-intended, but people like me, and we're trying to help you. Of course, it's all well-intended. And we say, okay, and then do this, and then do this, and then do this. And self-care is important. Self-pain management's important. And you try and you try and you struggle. And then you feel like, well, it must be something wrong with me then. So, and that's not what this trend is saying. It's just that sometimes the messages that can come across. So I just want to be sure we all understand, like, this isn't what it is about. And I have a little definition that I've come up with. So this is just how I describe it. It's long, it's lengthy, but to me, this is what describes it. So I'm just going to move. Can you see my full screen?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I love what you just said at the very beginning of that self-care is did you say it's what you say it is?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm looking at all these answers, and there's a lot to do with like checking in with myself, taking time for myself, taking care of myself. Yeah. Putting my needs first. Nice. Yeah. It's just some
good. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah. Thanks for yeah, I'm not looking at the chat. You're doing that. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I can't do both.
No. But I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's great. So I love that. Thank you, everybody, for putting that in. Exactly. So there you go. That's what it is. So here's another way, and it includes all of that, what you just said. So think of this as it's a dynamic process of meeting your needs, rooted in genuine care and concern for your well-being. So to me, those are operant words, right? It's a process. So it's not just like a list, and it's going to change. It's dynamic. So, what might be feeling like self-care, an activity, or a boundary you set, or asking for help, what might feel like self-care that day, in that moment, in that context, might change the next exact same situation in that context, but it's a different moment. And so it might not be that same boundary, or it might not be asking for help. It might be different. So this is where it gets, it gets complex, I guess would be the word, but that's a good thing. Like, I want that to be a hopeful word, because, then it gives us more possibility. So a dynamic process of meeting your own needs, rooted in genuine care and concern for your well-being. And then it goes on. So this isn't the end of the description. That is in line with your values. Oh, that's key, isn't it?
In line with your values. Yes. Not somebody else's values or what you feel like should be done, which is often what we do. I should be doing that. But this brings it right back to us, what to your own values.
So this is where I want to take a moment as well. And I'm going to do this here just for fun and just to mix it up so our eyes don't get all googly, and I'll come back. So I want to take a few minutes to look at, values, just a couple of minutes. And you can Google, how do I find my values, or, how to reflect on values, and you get like a million hits. So, there's stuff out there, but I wanted to share 3 of my favorites, and I share this with people, and we can do them. I'll go sort of brief, but of course you can replay this and you can take longer time. So maybe some of you know what you value most, or maybe you want to do this exercise anyway, because it's kind of fun to look at, well, first of all, like, what are values? So that's a whole other webinar, but, to me, just to make it simple, it's like, what matters most, right? What matters most? That's the simplest way for me I can describe it. And maybe you could go a little deeper and say what, really gives me meaning and purpose, but I like even just what matters most. And so from there, how we can find that, and maybe you know already, but I'm going to give you this one activity. So join in if you want to here. So think of that one thing that you feel like, oh, that would just make my life better. If only I had that one thing. Maybe it's a material thing. Maybe it's a person. And even if the person has passed or whatever, it's just in your imagination, if I only could have that one thing or this one situation, or if my life could be this one way. So think of that and just kind of bring that forward. That one thing, just narrow it down to one.
That's easier said than done.
So you take your time on that, and then hopefully you all can, like I said, I'm kind of rushing a little bit through it because we've got lots to go through, but hopefully you've got that one thing that you just know would really make your life better. Now imagine that you have it. So we're just pretending, and you may think, whatever you do think, that's fine, but just let's pretend. So just imagine you have it. So really go there and imagine who's around, what your life's like, and how it feels. Feelings, sometimes we get confused with thoughts versus feelings. So see if you can narrow it down to a couple feelings. And then if you can narrow it down to one word. That thing what is it, the feeling that you get from it?
The feeling itself.
Yeah, the one word.
Yeah.
And so that one word could be a value. Or it could be
peace.
Related to the value. Yeah, if you don't mind reading some, I'd love to.
Sure, peace, freedom, peace. A lot of people would want for that one thing to not be in pain. So I'm imagining peace, quality of life, security. Yeah, feeling safe within myself.
So,
energy, contentment, energized.
Yeah. Beautiful. So when and the person who put quality, yes, love, yeah. So those are values. All those words are values. Okay. And the person, and you don't need to comment or anything, but the quality of life. So just so what I would like you to ask yourself then, and when you think of that quality of life, then go peel it back and go deeper. So and how do you feel? So when you have that quality of life, now ask yourself, okay, how does, when you imagine it, right? So you imagine, what does that quality of life look like? So who's around? What am I doing? And then how does it make you feel? And it might be hard to bring that up right now because we're kind of going fast, but you can replay this and then really play it out and then say, so that quality of life, then how does it make you feel? And then you see, so you're peeling back to where you get one word and then that's the value. So that's one way to look at that. So yeah.
Right. I like that, to get the value behind, what you're doing or what you're feeling, or
And there's no right or wrong, and we're all different. And I did just see something pop up on there about productive. And that's a value for that person. That's and so that's, others may not, and there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why it's yours. What matters to you.
Yeah.
So that's great. So that's one way. And then there are a couple other ways as well. And I think we'll move on. I think that was really helpful. And and you can Google and find different ways how to do that.
That'd be something nice to sit with and just really drill it down.
Yeah.
See what comes up.
Yeah. And this one, we don't have time, but I'll just say it and you can replay it back. So it's kind of similar to the first one, but it's that asking why. And it's that same idea of peeling back the layers. So what do you enjoy? So find like what brings you joy or what brings you meaning, or, so it's kind of similar, but it's a little different. And then just saying, and why? And then, and this is hard because you say, well, just because, well, why? And when you keep going down to where there's nothing left and you're like, well, then that could be a value. And I saw someone there had put family. So beautiful. And that's great. And you can even, and that can be your word, and that's your value. And then if you want to bring like a feeling into it, then you can even see there's still room for more questions. Why?
Yeah.
Why family? What does it bring you? How does it make you feel?
Yeah.
You know, why is that important for you to be connected and loved, you know, with family?
Yes.
And then you see that core, maybe it's connection or love,
right.
Or maybe it stays at family. So like I said, there's no right or wrong here,
Right.
but they're really beautiful. And then that gets to the core of that. Okay. So that's an important exercise.
It is, isn't it? And then, and the fact that you can kind of bring that in now, even if that thing or that person or that situation is not present, to imagine what that feels like right now, to kind of touch into that feeling, if possible. Yeah.
So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Madeline, because there are different activities you can do to set goals. You know, so you want to look at goals and envision them, and this is different. So we're actually we're not getting attached to, you know, if only in finances or like if only I had. No, like I don't need to be like rich or anything, but just if I had that financial security, gosh, you know, and then I peel that back, freedom, you know, all those words.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for. So I'm not really talking about that financial freedom. I'm just trying to find out what is my core value and what matters most. So that's what this is about. So, okay. So next we're going to go on to, and you can see my screen, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So then there's more to the definition.
So, this is not as simple as a bubble bath. I'll tell you that much.
And that's actually, I'm glad you said that, because that was the point of this, to see, okay, this is a process, right? And we need to know what you value most.
Yeah.
And it involves these skills. And this is where we now come into the self-compassion. And I promise I'll answer your question, Madeline, about, you know, how does self-compassion help us, help people in pain?
Yes.
So here are some skills that self-care involves and that we can cultivate and train. Awareness. Okay, and those are a variety of different practices. If we have time, we, you know, I'd like to maybe do a couple. If we have time at the end, we'll see how it goes. But those are practices that help you let's do it right now. It's a minute. It takes a minute. So awareness, an example of an awareness practice. So you can close your eyes if you like. Of course, if that's not comfortable for you or whatever, don't feel like you have to, but sometimes that helps us just concentrate and go within. There's nothing to look at on the screen here. And become aware of your overall general state of your thoughts. You don't have to change them or do anything, but just see if you have a couple stories in there. The mind is always thinking, that's what it does. So just see where are the thoughts right now and watch them like you're watching the thoughts over a movie screen. So you're checking in. And then how about checking in with your emotions, your overall kind of emotional state in this moment? And it could be anything. So you're not fishing or looking for something that's not there. You're just kind of checking in. And emotions are happy, sad, content, overwhelmed, jealous, guilty, joyful, overwhelmed, anxious. So just an overall, maybe one feeling that's more predominant. And if you don't know, like that's okay too. Sometimes we're numb, and maybe that's just it. The word's numb. And then we check in with our overall energetic state. So see if you can check in with what that means to you right now. So head to toe, head to fingers. Maybe it's high energy, maybe it's medium, maybe it's low, maybe you don't know. And then check in with your overall body. So nothing too in depth here, just feel the chair on the back of your legs or the surface underneath you, and maybe your feet are on the floor, maybe they're crossed, or where are your arms. Just kind of feeling where your body is in space and where it's touching the surfaces under you, where there's space. Maybe you've got some space between your arms and trunk, or space in the front body where you're not touching anything. And maybe some physical sensations. No, we don't need to change or go into any stories, but just kind of checking in and saying hello to everything. And then your overall, the breath right now. The final one is just check in with the breath. Maybe you can get a sense of the rate, a sense of the depth. I don't know if it has any qualities, like if it's bumpy or rigid, or maybe it's kind of smooth and soft. Is there a gap or a space between your inhale and exhale? Or is it continuous? Sometimes when we're aware, we start to notice change. That's okay, but just checking in. Maybe you feel it in and out of the nostrils, or maybe you're breathing through the mouth. And the temperature, maybe it feels a little more cool and drier on the inhale and a little more warmed and moistened on the exhale. And then just release and take care of yourself and take your time in opening your eyes. So that was how you see, I get carried away with this stuff. I was just going to do like a minute breath. And then I was like, we might as well do the whole, but I mean, that's it. That is a component and a skill of self-care. And you don't have to stop, drop, and do that every time. That's not what we're saying. That is a practice that you could take bits of it for 1 minute. You know, you can just, okay, feel my feet on the ground, feel my breath. Like, you know, it could be even that short, but I just wanted to give you an idea of different ways that you can be aware.
I thought it was really nice to be led in that. And I felt like I just asked myself like a big, how are you? Like when you're asking someone, how are you? Like, I was like, how are you right now in this moment? And I don't know how other people, you know, sometimes you know, you answer, well, I'm good, or sometimes it's not good, but at least like the skill of noticing yourself, I imagine would lead on to what you need.
Right. Oh, you got it. So the next, and this is what you're going to see here. So it involves the skills of, and attention is very similar to what we just did, right? I mean, they're similar, the aware, but it's a little different in that we're saying, can you sustain your attention? So and be fully present, right? And that's a skill, and that leads into exactly what you just said. So some self-reflection and insight into your needs. So how are you going to know what you need in that moment if you're not fully present and aware? And if you don't know your values, you don't really know exactly what you need in that moment, right? Because you just need to almost we all need to get to know ourselves a little bit better. I don't know about you, but I know for me as I age, I just feel like I know myself better, you know, and I think I'll keep growing and growing, but I know that probably just comes with age too, but it is something that you can cultivate. And the self-reflection piece is part of that. So, and then that
absolutely.
Did you want to add anything there?
Oh, just, I mean, I think you're right. I think as you as you practice this more, it seems you can get more in tune with what you need. But I know, you know, it's, as a therapist, sometimes when I start asking people it's almost like it is a skill that doesn't always come right away. Right. And sometimes it's a very difficult question to answer. What do I need?
And you don't
and that's okay.
Know. Yeah. And I mean, I don't always know, and I'm conflicted, and I do something that's not maybe in the best, you know, care. And I'll get into the self-compassion piece that will speak to that even more. But it's not about, and that's why, like I said, it's just a process, you know, and it's dynamic, and you're doing your best, and it involves these skills. So for me, in nowhere do I say like that you have to get it right, or that the result has to be this. And, you know, that's just, that's
Yeah.
that's actually, when we talk about self-compassion, we'll come to that and say that's actually not a self-compassionate way. So all of this leads to further discernment then, right? More insight, and then more discernment of what you need in that moment. And that might be some courage to speak something. Maybe it's a boundary you need to set, or ask for help, or, I mean, let's fill in the blanks here. There's always so much so much that I have to say that, and that leads to courage and self-compassion for the action. So I'm speaking to the action piece right now. So self-care, I believe it does involve an action, but remembering that the action can be doing nothing. The action can be removing yourself from the situation, can be rest, can be silence, can be stillness. I had a list of some things here that I really liked, and now I can't find them. But that gives you an idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, of different like actions, right? So, and maybe if anyone actually, why don't you all help me out? So I can't find my list of the different things, that when you go through all of this in a certain moment, what might be a self-care action.
I would love to. Yeah. If people would like to just drop anything in the chat around that. And also, if you have taken that empowered relief course this is sometimes where we end up too with the action. Oh, I like this action of acceptance.
Yes.
Rather than, I suppose, rather than resisting or
Beautiful.
fighting.
Beautiful. Yeah. And then I can get really nitpicky for myself here. And when I look at that, okay, what would be my action? Like my number one answer would be, it depends. That's just kind of circling back. I get kind of philosophical sometimes, but that's just sort of circling back to the whole description here. So my action, it will depend on all these things. And then, so really to do this exercise, what I would do is I would have us all bring up something we're really struggling with, like really have you imagine it and go through it. And then you could say, okay, in that moment, what might self-care look like? And so you can do these thought experiments, and then you can just also get into the habit of, it's not like we have to every moment walk around in this deep self-reflective. That just isn't what I'm saying, but it does, when you practice this stuff as a separate activity, as a thought experiment and a little meditation for a few minutes, then what you find is in life, you do have moments where you're like, oh, this is a moment where I, can choose here. And sometimes we don't even know that we're at until maybe it's kind of, I don't want to say too late. That's not what I'm looking for, but we just have so much going on, and then it's really far along that continuum. Then we do it, which is fine. That's great. But sometimes if we're a little more aware and present, we may have, found a better self-care action, several hours before or whatever. And again,
Totally.
It's not to beat ourselves up about it, which goes into self-compassion. So before I go to self-compassion, the last thing, and I was talking to you about this, Madeline, I want to be really clear. I think every time I talk about self-care, this is so important. So what we're talking about here is you, and self-care dependent on you and your contribution as an individual to your self-care, what your choice is, and it's your process. But it's also influenced by our environment around us, right? What kind of support we have, the surrounding support, resources, the environment, whether it's, our family, friends, or maybe society at large, or, just different organizations or people or your workplace or, whatever. But it's just, there's no such thing really as self in isolation. It's always dependent, even just in being here for an hour, what has allowed us this if you're looking at this as your self-care time to spend here for the hour,
right?
What has allowed us? I've got my husband in the other room who's locked up for an hour and a half and he's not allowed to come out, So you know, that's dependent, you know, on that. And you know, the internet, so we have to depend on what good Wi-Fi, and you know, there's a lot of different people involved. And then of course you can just look at systemically, right, what kind of support and resources that we have. So any self-care activity like does involve others in some way, and allow space for you to, you know, to have that. So of course this webinar, like what we're doing here, I'm just talking about what we can do, because there are things that we can do, and that's all we're doing. So I'm not getting into,
Right.
you know, well, how can, because so if you are lacking resources or support, then yeah, that might be something then that you might need some help with, and get guidance from others. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I would never say anything's easy, but it's worth acknowledging. And that's why I'm really liking this term, supportive self-care. And even looking at self-care and saying we care. I don't know if anyone has heard that, but I've heard that term before too. We care. So just reminding ourselves that you're not alone, and look at this platform. So for example, everybody on here today, every Monday, like, you know, like, yes, this is maybe a lot of self-care information that you provide with your platform and the Pain and Research Center and everything that you're doing. And just for everybody to remind themselves that, yeah, like your self-care and what you're doing, it's dependent on all of us, you know, like Matt, like you have a platform, this is free, you're doing it for everyone. And so I'm here to say, yeah, we need to do a better job at helping guide people in pain, and you know, just everybody, all of you listening, we all need to do a better job at supporting you. So I had to get that. I had to say that.
Yeah, I think it's an important message. I will interrupt too many times, but
no, this is good.
That we don't have to do this alone. Like, we don't have to do this journey alone. Clearly, you know, we gather every Monday night that that self-care doesn't mean I just have to go and look after myself, but I might choose to show up here, and that this could be my self-care, or talking to somebody that you trust that supports you, or it's nice to be understood, says Christiane, or going and having a chat with getting the courage to go talk to a healthcare professional that you might want, you know, that might be a choice, or
just know you're not alone. And I think the messages that are out there, they're not intended to be this way, but what happens, like I said, with the self-care trend, and particularly for all of you listening, for those of you, you know, who are struggling with your pain, I know this because I listen to, you know, not all of you specifically, I don't know you, but other people that I work with, and, you know, they share their stories, and it just, the message they're hearing. So even though, you know, I'm not saying this, but the message they're hearing is, you know, you're not doing a good enough job at your self-care. And if you would only do a better job at your self-care, then your pain would be better. And that's prevalent out there. Like I said, it's not meant to be like that, but that's absolutely what I think.
I think that's a really important point, what you just said. Yeah. That even in providing these webinars, that we make sure that the message is, you know, it's not that nobody's doing a good enough job, but we just have you know, information that we can give. But yeah, I can see how that message can be taken that way.
So that's great. And this leads very nicely into self-compassion. So before we get into the self-compassion, and I'll answer that question you had, and then we're going to be close to wrapping up here. See, it goes fast, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness.
So the key message from this kind of self-care chat was just maybe consider redefining self-care as more of a process if you haven't before, and just take some time over the next few weeks or whatever, just to reflect on what it means to you. And even just, that's what in yoga, that's one thing we do. It's just reflecting. So there's no necessarily, you know, we're not attached to any kind of outcome or expectation necessarily on that reflection session. It's just to sit and think and sit with self-compassion. So I'd like to go to switch gears a bit to this, although it's not really switching gears, it's all in the same. But this idea of compassion is, it's again, almost like a concept, and there's no one agreed upon definition. So it's kind of like self-care in that, you know, there's going to be some different definitions. Some people look at it more as a feeling. Some people look at it more as a motivation. Others will include the behavior piece. So the way they look at it in the literature, and the way that I, you know, used it in the book chapter, and the way I speak to it, as you'll see, is that it does have this behavioral component or action, that there is an action to it. And it's what really separates compassion from other things like sympathy or empathy. Compassion has the action to it. And there's these three orientations. So this comes from Professor Paul Gilbert. He's a clinical psychologist, founder of compassion-focused therapy, and professor at the University of Derby. Or anyways, he's a bunch of things. He's a researcher. He's a compassion researcher. And so he talks about these three orientations of compassion. And I think these are they'll make sense to everybody. So it's the giving of compassion, also the receiving of compassion, and then giving and receiving to yourself. And I love this quote: if your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. So, you know, sometimes when we're talking about compassion, and people might talk about things like compassion fatigue, or like I'm giving too much, whatever. Well, in this definition, you know, that we use in the working definition in the Oxford Handbook of Compassion Science, it includes yourself. So if you feel like you're giving too much, or if you have this compassion fatigue, we say, well, absolutely, you're feeling how you're feeling, and it's like it's fatigue.
Yeah.
Right? Because the whole process of compassion is, again, it's a process, and there's all these ingredients that prime us for a compassion wisdom to emerge. And that wisdom within that context will include yourself and your boundaries and what you need. So you do still want to serve the other person, your family members, especially those of you, if you had a value of service. So some people, that might be their number one value, is service. Well, the self-care industry, like, no one's going to take that away from you. See, if service is that's what makes you tick, then we want to keep that for you, and we want you to keep giving, and because that's what fuels you. So no one's going to take that away from you. And now we add, if you're getting fatigued, and if maybe you're not setting certain boundaries or whatever, maybe there's some things there, for you to reconsider. And maybe you're not, but if you feel that you're getting compassion fatigue, I say that in air quotes, then maybe it's fatigue, or it is fatigue, and let's redefine this compassion piece to include yourself.
I love that. Just, that you're included in the circle of compassion, to include yourself, so that you don't empty your own cup.
Right. And I think by now, I mean, I might be in a bubble, but I feel like that message, and I know I'm in a bubble, the algorithms on social media. So I read, like, every day I see something, saying, if you don't fill up your cup, or if you don't, how else do I hear it? Like, if you don't have your own inner resources, then you can't have the resources to care for others, your inner resources. So, and that makes sense. We have to do, but again, we have to watch, if you're having trouble with that, not to be hard on yourself for not filling your cup.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, and that's where we're talking about self-compassion. Right. So this compassion piece, I've said most of this, the definition does say you have to first be aware. So go back to what we did, that awareness practice. You have to first be aware that you're struggling in some way. And sometimes that's easier than we think. At first glance, we may think, well, that's easy. Of course we know when we're struggling. But sometimes it's a little more nuanced. We don't even really realize it. So being aware. and then having the intention or the motivation to want to obviously alleviate the struggle or the suffering. And then, like I said, the behavioral response, it depends on the context. There's no canned self-compassionate response, and it's this dynamic process. So that's, you can see the overlap with self-care. That's kind of repetitive. But here now I wanted to talk about the three components of self-compassion. And so this comes from Kristen Neff. So Kristen Neff she's really the one that brought self-compassion, this term, into our language, and she's one of our main self-compassion researchers. She started, I think it was mid-90s or later 90s, so she's been doing this a long time. And I have her resource at the end. She's just got a ton of free stuff, her website and workbooks. But she says that compassion has these three different components, and they're going to look very similar to some of the stuff we've already talked about. And the first component is mindfulness. So it's that idea of being fully present and aware in the moment. So we already did a little mindfulness practice. And again, you don't have to necessarily do that full practice, but it's just the idea, like right now, let's say you're listening here and you're aware, and let's say you're aware right now that something is really your pain, or something's really distracting you, and you've been having trouble focusing the last few minutes, and you kind of, were distracted or something. So the mindfulness piece is to kind of check in and be like, okay, not only was I distracted and all that, but maybe you found out that you were frustrated for some reason, and not necessarily needing to go on to the story as to why or what are you going to do. No, just I'm struggling right now. This is really hard. Like, to pay attention, to keep listening, and it's just, I'm struggling.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all the mindfulness is just to be aware that you're having a tough moment right now. That's it. And then the second component is the common humanity. So this is the idea that you're not alone. This is a good one. I know none of us have the exact same experience, but we all have similar types of feelings. We know what it feels like. We all know what it feels like to feel shame, to feel like, yeah, we didn't do good enough, or we made a mistake, we're embarrassed.
Yeah.
We didn't put in the effort that we thought we should have, or we did put in all of what we needed, and people around us aren't valuing and respecting it. So we're really angry, and we're angry maybe at someone or something, and so angry. And we talk about all this compassion, and we're like, no, like they hurt me, or that hurt, and it's this idea that whatever you're feeling, that's a common human experience. You're not alone. Mm-hmm. And I love this quote from Kristen. And so she says, when we fail, let me just see, I have to move this little. When we fail or make mistakes, that doesn't separate us from others. That's precisely what unites us to others. And I think that's beautiful. So just reminding us that we're connected that way. And remember, this is the research part, right? This is the stuff, like they've researched these three components, and she has all these validated scales and stuff. So just keeping in mind the context there. And then the final component of self-compassion is kindness. And this is the idea that we're extending some kind of kindness gesture to ourselves. And that, just to repeat, because we've already gone through what that might look like. It could be saying something, setting a boundary, leaving the situation. What we haven't mentioned is a gesture of self-kindness or soothing in some way in that moment. Could be like a hands over your heart. It could be a hand gesture, bowing your head. It could be saying, I'm okay, I'm good enough, or just repeating some kind of phrase for that moment. That's really helpful. I did my best. I did my best. I'm a good person. I'll share that with you all, something private. I'm going to take you through a brief practice if we're okay for time. But that's one thing that it just came up. I didn't think about it too much. It was just, I was really struggling, and it was a situation, and I just, and one way you can think of is, what do you want to hear right now? Or what do you wish someone would just say to you right now in this moment? It's a very nurturing, but you give it to yourself. And the thing that came up, it was just, I'm a good person. And I, had the tears. I'm a good person. I'm a good person. It was just beautiful, and I just took that moment, and I'm good. And that was really helpful for me, because I was feeling really bad about, something. So that's, so
That's
maybe,
really beautiful.
maybe I'll stop there if you have anything to add, or.
Oh, yeah. I just, what you said, well, about just being aware through mindfulness, even just like touching into that emotion without going into the story, and maybe having something that just spontaneous comes up, or some action of kindness towards yourself in that moment, where it can be the hardest to perhaps think of those things at the time, of how to bring some kind, when when that inner critic is really going, go really loud. And I'll just also share something really, really brief here. The idea of just noticing the emotion. And, I also had this moment where I had a lot of running thoughts about a specific situation. And it just came to me. It seems really simple, but it shifted everything. Just anger.
Yeah.
Anger. And that seemed to quiet the mind.
Yeah.
Because it just needed to be felt. Like, it just needed to be acknowledged. And it's like, yes, anger. And we all, like that, again, the common humanity. I didn't know I was doing this, what you're teaching now. We all have anger. And it's okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think anger is, we could do a whole, webinar on that. I think, I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like, again, our culture and maybe more women, but maybe not. But it feels, well, okay, how about I just give you my experience? Anger was something like that's bad, like if I'm angry, that's equated with bad. Like that's you're not a good person if you're angry, and
you're not very nice. That's not very nice.
You need to be kind, and if you do feel that anger, like it's just bad and it's wrong, and so that's kind of the message. That's how I grew up, and that's sort of the messages. And I didn't have parents that's like that said, oh, it's just the message overall that we get from society. And so but what I've learned through this is exactly what you said, like anger, like that's normal. And it wasn't until I could feel it, and I'll be honest with everybody, a lot of it was like, it was anger towards someone. That's really feels yucky in me. Right? That to me seems words like hate or evil or like just bad. Anger goes with that. So if I'm angry at someone, and I push it down because that's not nice and that's bad, then that just, I find, bottles up. So with these self-compassion practices, basically I'm just saying exactly what you said. It's just, you acknowledge it, and like that's normal and it's good, and you listen. Now there's the idea of you feel it, and you use it, and you have it you process it, and you feel it, you let it move through you, whatever. And then the next part is, the regulation and how we handle it. So yes, like it doesn't mean we're not at all talking about punching the person,
right?
But it's the idea we've got to feel it, and that's a lot of the somatic work I love in yoga, because you can if you need to roar or scream or do a warrior or do and vocalize, and like there's all these different practices and let it out, and that's important. So I'm really glad you talked about anger, and the self-compassion piece, which now I'm okay for time. I want to respect everybody else's time. But this takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes, which means 4 minutes. My husband will say means 4 minutes, Shelley time.
Shelley time.
But do you want to go through a little self-compassion meditation type, or?
I can put it out there. What do you guys? I think it would be a wonderful way to actually just have an experience of what that feels like in those moments. I'm seeing yes, 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 yeah, yeah. And I mean, everybody is still here, which is fantastic. And don't worry if you do have to sign off at 7. It's totally okay because we are being recorded. But if you have the time, I encourage you just to stay for the practice, because this is something that you can it's a skill that you can take away with you.
So that's great. So and it'll just be brief, and then if some of you do have to go, like just watch the replay, and then I have resources at the end. And like I said, a lot of more, because there's more of these little practices and you can integrate into your day. Like I have a toilet meditation.
I saw that on your website. I was like, I don't know if I want to see that. No,
so let me say that, because this I highly recommend and it's free. You can look on, I have it on YouTube, and then also as a blog. And when you have this toilet meditation, what I like is that it gives you an opportunity. So it's 6 to 8 times a day you go to the bathroom. So for
with
those
the door
of us,
closed, you have privacy.
You have usually, and some people will say, I don't even know. Okay, so fine.
Yeah.
Some people, it's hard, right? You've got little kids or whatever, but for the most part,
right.
Out of those 6 to 8 times, you may have a couple privacy, but you're right. So often it's a time when we do have privacy. Close the door, and it's 6 to 8 times a day, every day. And so you can do a moment of mindfulness, and I have an acronym that I use to remind you: awareness, imagery, relax, breathe, allow, and then at the very end, gratitude. Just so it's airbag is the acronym.
Okay.
Yeah, it's brief, but you can find it, and that's a self-compassion practice in and of itself, and it has all those components of awareness, and then giving yourself gratitude at the end for going to the bathroom. Okay, so here's so let's do this, and then I think I just have a couple slides to wrap up, like key messages, and
perfect.
And should be good. Okay, so this is another thought experiment. So we call it a self-compassion meditation, and it's just to take some time to practice what it might be like to extend some self-kindness to you, so that when you are in the actual moment of struggle, you're kind of familiar because you've done this before. So it's kind of that idea. So you can get yourself comfy or as comfortable as you want. Again, eyes closed if that feels good for you. So not everybody likes to do that here, but it might help you really bring up the situation. So let's just get kind of centered again, and maybe just a little breath. And then think of something in your life that you're struggling with right now. So it might be something you feel frustrated about, angry, helpless, fearful. And I'll give you time to figure out what the thing is, and choose something that's not too overwhelming for this meditation. Okay, so just take care of yourself. So you still want a little discomfort, right? Because it's challenging, it's uncomfortable, but nothing that will really overwhelm you. It could be maybe a movement or activity that increases your pain, or you feel fearful of performing, or maybe it's a thought or behavior that you'd like to change and you struggle with changing it. Or maybe it's a relationship or conversation with someone. But take a moment and really visualize and imagine the details of this. Play it out in your mind as if you were there. Where you are, what's happening, if there's other people around, and any words that are being said. And then take a moment. And this is where we do the first part, mindfulness. This is hard. That's it. You notice, whew, yeah, this is hard. I'm struggling. Notice any self-talk. Notice the words, statements, and even the tone. Do you have some tone that's maybe kind of criticizing or shaming? Or is it more loving and kind? And feel any emotions that may come up as you're in this difficult situation. And do those emotions show up somewhere in your body? If so, maybe notice where they're located, notice any physical sensations or tension. The breath change at all. And then recognize you're not alone. So maybe a little self-talk like, it's okay. Oh, how human of me. I'm not alone in my struggle. This is just part of being human. And then create a gesture of self-kindness. So this is the part that might take some time. It's different for everyone, but it's this idea of, what do you need right now? So some suggestions, like I said, one hand over your heart and maybe the other. Maybe, what do you need to hear right now in this moment? Or maybe wish someone would say to you. Or if you had a loved one struggling with this exact same thing, what would you say to them? Sometimes that's easier. And then turn that to yourself. And from that, maybe even a phrase, like one word or a little statement you want to keep repeating. And that is it. So that's the mindfulness, the common humanity, the self-kindness. And there's other things like, sometimes it feels good to caress and stroke arms, legs, rock. In yoga, of course, different postures. So you may get into a warrior, or some posture. So really, there's no rules. One thing I'll share with you all I do is it just came up, that's so neat about this stuff. It just kind of arose. I stroke like one thumb over top of the other. And so I can do that in private, right? Because I'm not always just going to stop and do that.
Right.
So, just my hands are in my lap and I just kind of do this little, and it's like, I don't know, it just reminds me, Shelley, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing the best you can. You're okay. Good girl, good job.
Yeah.
And I kind of talk to that younger self, good girl. And for me, I like that, but that's not going to help everybody. Some people you will feel really discomforting, with some of this stuff. So you got to, what works for you.
Right. I like that. Just having a cue, that something that cues it for you, that whether it's your thumb or just, patting yourself or whatever it might be, that brings it up to let you know it's okay. It's all right. And I'm just imagining what that kind of does in the, someone says like a grounding technique, exactly like what it does kind of in your nervous system, just to soothe and calm an agitated nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, and the value, so now just this last piece here, I promised you I would answer your question. Do you remember at the beginning, that question you asked about the science?
Yes, that question. Yeah.
So we do have research. It's still, new. It's in its infancy, as we say. But yeah, it seems that people with self-compassion or training self-compassion, it's more associated with these things. So this is good stuff on the screen: reduced anxiety, depression, the stress response, rumination. So that's that, you can't stop thinking about that one thing. It's just really playing over and over. This is big for me. I ruminate a lot. It's just I'm
in
wired.
That loop.
Yeah,
it's hard to get out.
I'm wired that way, but all these practices are they've been super helpful. And then the catastrophization. So I don't love that word, but it is the word that's used in the literature, especially when we talk about pain, catastrophization. But it's this idea, because to me that sounds like, oh, you're exaggerating.
Right.
It's like, that's so invalidating. It's like, no, I'm not. So I love Bronnie Thompson. She's an occupational therapist and pain researcher in New Zealand, and she has the concept of catastrophization as our overestimation of the threat, and our underestimation of the resources to address the threat. And it's like, like it's, so there's maybe a little imbalance, but my goodness, like you're, So anyways, but self-compassion has been shown to reduce that, bring that into balance. Perfectionism, self-criticism, and then even reducing fear of failure. And I think that's so interesting. And then, you know, it's this, see, I could just talk forever. You have to just cut me off when you say, Shelley, we run out of time. But this is important too. This is important, I think. And it's been huge for me personally and for the people that I've worked with. And it's this idea that we think, well, what if we have, you know, just too much self-compassion? Like we'll just kind of be right? If I'm too self-compassionate, I'm not going to change my behavior. I'm not going to be the best person I can be. I'm going to lie on the couch till 2 in the afternoon. I'm going to eat ice cream all day. And that's what I'm going to, but what self-compassion, hopefully you can see that's not really what it's talking about. But what the literature shows is that when we compare self-compassion to the self-critical voice, because that, just back up a bit, that self-critical voice, my belief that I'm trying to get out of, and I think a lot in our culture, my belief is that self-critical voice helps me to change my behavior because I've seen that happen. That's my experience. So you can't tell me any different.
Right.
But what the research says is that self-critical voice, it might change your behavior in the short term, but it doesn't create sustainable behavior change. And it's more related to, guess what? Anxiety. And I was like, that blew me away a few years ago. And I was like, that makes sense. And then when I started to do the self-compassion practices, it's kind of scary because I feel like I will let myself I'm just letting myself off the hook.
Yeah.
But I'm experiencing what the research says, which is no, because now when I'm looking at maybe a behavior I want to change or something, if my motivation is rooted in genuine self-care and love for myself, the research shows you're more likely to change your behavior, and it's associated with less anxiety.
And sustaining over the long run.
And it's more, sorry, yes. Yeah. You're right. That was the other one. Exactly. That was the point I forgot. Yeah. And it's more sustainable. And you're more likely to try new things, which might be important in pain care, right? It can be a little scary to try some different movements or something. So you're more likely to try something new. You're actually more likely to try again after you've made a mistake or after you failed. So there we go again. I failed another treatment, or you feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it seems to cultivate more patience and kind of, okay, well, I'll help you. And you need that support by other people. Let's try again. And it just helps you be more emotionally resilient. And and you can see for more life satisfaction and health promotion behavior. So, I mean, this is what I wanted to share with you all. So, you know, the value of self-compassion in pain care. And that's what my chapter is about. Like, look, there's value. And this is specifically for people in pain. So now we have specific literature on self-compassion. And it even shows, again, preliminary, but it seems to even help to reduce pain intensity. Of course, pain is complex. Like, we're not making any big claims in that, but we're just saying, hey, look at some of these studies. And I'm not going to read through it all, but you can see on the page here some of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, Shelley, that last point you made, I think is so important for people to hear. Just that we may have been brought up or had role models, or, you know, that promote or encourage or whatever the self-critical voice that if you just work harder, if you just try harder, then you'll get there. And that the moving to self-compassion can be a little bit scary. Like, what happens if I try this? You know, will I lose all my motivation to move forward? And what you're saying is that for those reasons that you know, it's almost like I just had this idea when you were talking about saying, okay, January 1st, I'm going to start this diet, you know, and I'm going to just do this for January, by the end of January, or whatever it might be. And it's full of criticism and anxiety, that those things don't tend to work in the long run.
And that's what the research is showing. So it's it's that point is really fascinating. And I'm still like, I can still see. So even though I know all this, right, and I've been presenting it now for a few years, I still, how do I describe this? I'm sure everyone will understand this. I still can feel the remnants of my old belief. I still can feel that sometimes, you know, especially in different things. It's like, I'm going to let myself off the hook but it just takes practice. And again, it's this mentality. It's really just this mentality of, I love myself. And then the behavior, like I said, is then an action that is the ultimate self-care, you know, like you actually choose even more in favor of your values, whether it's honesty or family or peace or connection or truth or fill in the blank, whatever it is. So you're gonna, it's pretty powerful. And then can I read this?
I think I'll just say before you read this that Joletta is going to be our guest in a couple of weeks' time. So just want everybody to hear that.
Look at this.
This person right here is so, go ahead and read.
Oh, that's so exciting. So Joletta wrote chapter 1 of our book, The Lived Experience of Pain. And here's her quote. So, I'm so excited that you all get to meet her. Oh my gosh, you are going to, she's amazing. So she says, I was quite angry and upset with myself for a long time, beating myself up constantly for not being able to figure it out, for not doing this pain thing right, for not getting better when I was supposed to. I beat myself for being in pain at all, for not handling it better, handling it like I should have. It took a long time and a lot of practice to begin to be kind and compassionate with myself, to see that I'm just human, just trying to figure it all out like everybody else is, having very human experiences, of which pain and suffering were a part. I'm more kind and compassionate with myself now. So I think that really brings in a lot. And just to let us know, sometimes it's hard. So we do have from the research that there are some barriers sometimes to receive compassion from others and also to receive compassion from yourself. So I think that's interesting. So just know that it's hard. And it could be all kinds of things, like maybe we truly don't feel we are deserving. There might be some underlying shame or unworthiness, and that's a common human experience. So you're not weird or, or anything for that feeling. That's common, and there could be a lot of different reasons. And it's just, so that's part of it. And with support and help, maybe you can work through that, or you can work through that with support. You may just have the belief that it's unhelpful, that I was talking to that earlier, right? If you don't know as much about compassion and you think it's going to lead to just bad self-indulgent behaviors, then that might be a barrier to receiving it. And then again, we've talked about the lack of support, or if we're under our own distress. So our whole physiological system might be under that hypervigilant, right? Fear, fight, flight. And a lot of us, that are struggling with pain for a long time, those changes, as you all know, I'm sure, happen in your system. And so if it's just the whole system is feeling really overwhelmed and distressed, then it's harder to have the environment within you that's conducive to compassion. I mean, think about that for a moment, right? We have to feel safe in social engagement to have that bonding, so that it could be physiologically And then there's some of these other things here, like sometimes we don't like receiving support or compassion for others because we have this idea that we don't want to owe anybody back, or we don't trust maybe their intentions. And maybe we just have had bad experiences before and we just don't respond well. So, you know, that was really quick, but I just wanted to point out, again, I always think I couldn't do this talk without this. You know, I always say there's all these parts that I just want to share, and you don't have to know this in detail other than just know that it's not always easy, and that's okay, and that's normal. So yeah, so this part with self-compassion, these key messages, just it's part of self-care, as we were talking about self-care. And self-compassion is trainable. We did a little activity there, and I'll give you resources at the end for many more ways if you're interested. And it has great value in pain care. I'm biased to it. I'm going to keep advocating to bring more self-compassion in pain care. I think always, unless someone kicks me off the platforms, but yeah.
You know, just as you're talking though, Shelley, I don't think that will happen, because it's almost like you can feel that not only just, the science support it now, but you can feel that feels like a healthier approach,
Right?
to difficult situations. When I can see myself suffering, then maybe this might be a jump, but maybe I don't have to be right in the suffering. Or
yeah, that's what the wisdom traditions tell us, right? Pain is inevitable, suffering is the choice. I don't know how people, if you've heard that or how you feel about it, but that's some of the wisdom traditions tell us that. But yeah, so these are the resources, and you can always replay this and have a look. But this is that Kristen Neff I was talking about. You go to her website and oh my goodness, there's just so much free stuff and information, and a couple others there, of course, the book chapter. And then I have this this blog, and I finally just compiled all of my compassion and self-care resources in the blog. So it's just an easy, kind of click. You can see all the titles, and some of them are YouTube practices and different things. And if anyone likes this stuff, there's this hashtag that they have on Twitter and Facebook. If you're a social media person, it's a beautiful community. Every Saturday they post, like they have like an online newsletter. So every Saturday they just post like really cool stuff, whether it's an article or a little video practice or a quote. They really like their quotes. So just, the inspirational kind of stuff.
Right.
So so that's that. And you all know where you can find me, just, my name, and I'm all over social media and my website. And I'd love if you have, I'm okay for time, if, unless we have to go, but if there are,
let's see,
there are questions or anything, or if you have any, Madeline or Dr.
Well, there's been a lot of really interesting comments going along that I didn't want to just, a lot of thank yous, and just the part about it can be related to a person's past, like how you approach self-compassion, if you've, been taught that that's a good thing or not, it can feel awkward. I'll just put it out there. We've got a couple minutes. If anybody has any questions that are popping out for you right now around self-compassion or self-care, I just thought it made a lot of sense what you were saying, and especially around some of the barriers. Lots of good information, I think. So everybody knows you can go back to those resources in the replay, and I really would encourage you to look at Shelley's website. I've been trolling around there for a while, and went back there and watched some really good stuff for people in pain. So I'm not seeing any questions. I think you covered You covered a lot. Yeah. Just, I don't know if you can see the blog at all. Just some really good information. It helps to think my compassion truly is incomplete. Oh, yeah. It's always something, it's a process, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mm.
oh, so that's it, self-compassion, but sometimes I feel shamed. Ooh, I'd like to know a little bit more about what that means. So from what from that, I might be wrong, and maybe Madeline, you can see too, or and if that person wants to say a little more, it sounds like, so maybe what I'm getting from that is that person tries to give themselves compassion, but they feel shamed when they do. I wonder if that's what they're saying. But yeah, that's.
And I guess whether it's shamed, you feel shamed yourself, or you feel shamed by other people.
Right. Yeah.
Or in the past, if you've had that experience of express some self-compassion, and then you were kind of made to feel ashamed of it too.
That'll stick around. Yeah.
Sticks around. Yeah. And I'm wondering about then giving yourself some more self-compassion for feeling shamed on
That's
top
it.
of the.
Absolutely.
Is that it?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. And yeah, bringing that self-compassion and like I said, it can be, yeah. So depending on if that was like other people shaming you, or if you felt self-shame. So, if it's other people, yeah, I guess that's something just, for your own, like you can just work on in your own heart, right? Like just that and feeling, bringing up that feeling and whatever gesture you have. Okay. Thanks. I see that comment now. Okay. So thanks for sharing that. So one thing that the self-compassion researchers say is that self-compassion is an antidote to shame. So when we do feel shame, it's all the more reason to keep just practicing the self-compassion as best as you can. And remember not to judge yourself on the self-compassion practice.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with you just can't find it in you at all to be self-compassionate because you have so much shame, that's okay. That's part of it. So it's just showing up. And so what I would suggest to that is go through the process. So the first part is mindfulness. So when you are feeling, that shame, or however it's showing up in your body, your breath, your mind, however, the first part is acknowledging. I'm struggling. I can't even forgive myself for this. I can't. That this is so whatever, the shame. And so you can say that I'm struggling. This is really hard. And then no, you're not alone. You know how many people, like, you're not alone. Yeah. Many people, and we're not doing the comparative shame or the comparative suffering, but people do have that same level. They really, we do. And no one will ever truly understand your unique situation, but that common humanity is that you're not alone. And then the third piece, so that's what's really hard, right? Is that how can I give some kindness? Because you just don't feel like you deserve it. And that it's okay. That's okay.
It's okay.
Just, you did it. And, maybe someday even just putting hands on your heart, and just, you can just do that. And if you don't feel that you fully feel self-compassionate or forgiving yourself, like that's okay. So you can sometimes even just go through the motions, or even just go through the phrase, even if you don't maybe fully believe it.
Right.
And maybe with time. But yeah, the biggest thing, like you said it perfectly, Madeline, is then have compassion for have the self-compassion for not being able to have the self-compassion. And I just saw the other comment there and just said, yeah, they're working through it, and it's just a lot of work. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got it. You got it. Yeah.
You got it. Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that piece about, right, when you feel shame, to remember that you're not alone, because that shame kind of thrives in that secrecy. So just to bring yourself out, that you're not, just to remember you're not alone.
Oh yeah. And if I
kind
may
of outs
say,
it. Yeah.
if I may say too, we don't talk about those shameful things. That's even harder. If we could just have safe communities to talk about those things, but we don't. And it's that whole idea again of we just like, well, you said, I guess, the privacy. And and then this is again just a personal experience. I don't know if this is true for anybody else, but I find I'm probably on social media too much. And I find sometimes I let it get to me when you see all these kinds of messages that I interpret, and this is all my stuff. This isn't other people, but this is me. And I feel these messages. I feel what's being said to me is, like you should be ashamed, or like, because there's a lot of like kind of righteousness,
right,
like this is what it means to be a good human, and so you have those thoughts, or you did what, or you allowed what, and it's just not, and social media is not the place to talk about this, that's for sure. But I'm just saying, there's no, even in our nice safe circles, we don't talk about things we're ashamed of. So so it's a journey, and to me it was making me feel weak. And that's the thing with so this idea of self-compassion is it's actually, if hopefully you can see how this is actually the opposite. It takes a ton of courage, and it actually makes you stronger and gives you the inner resources and even more resilient.
Totally. That's a really good point. Like, just that this actually is building a very resilient muscle to be able to kind of pick yourself up or not, and have compassion for yourself when you do feel ashamed, or you fall down, or things that you still got your own back, I guess. So just reading. Oh, well, Shelley, we've brought you like full time round, and even more. And obviously
I can let my husband out of the bedroom now.
Yeah, you can let him out. He's probably dying to go to the washroom or something. And I'll let my dog out of the room here. So thank you so much for this time. And I think we've covered just a lot of ground, and a lot of thoughts to take away. I think just for me, like, it's expanded my view of self-care and self-compassion, and all the possibilities for us, but coming in first with our values, and that nobody can tell us, what that is. That's really ours. So I'm, I hope, for all of you here, it looks like there's been a ton of interaction. I really want to thank all of you for being here, and you'll get the replay, and so you can watch it again. And so many little gems were dropped tonight. So
that was great. Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And thanks again, Dr. Lawrence, and thanks to the Pain and Research Center and all the great work you're doing. And to everybody, thank you all for your attentiveness. And I had fun. Thank you.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we'll check in with you in 4 or 6 months time, and have you back once we start practicing more self-care and self-compassion.
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Great. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.